hard to switch a beautiful song like that off, isn't it? And it's especially hard to switch a voice like that off. So what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be channeling George Michael and asking him some questions. And those of you that follow me regularly know that in my last video of only 2 days ago, I mentioned George and said that I felt that he would be coming through in the next couple of months. And as is often the way with spirit, well, time is different in the spiritual world. So he's come through much sooner than I thought he would. But I'm very pleased that he has come through so clearly. And very much like Princess Diana, when I channeled her a couple of weeks ago, George's energy was also with me over the last 24 hours in particular, particularly last night. Didn't video anything last night, but already was conversing back and forth with him. And there was answers to some of the questions that have already come through from some of you. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to just relay to you what I already know and that has already come through from him. And then we will open it up more to new questions that have come in overnight. And I'm just going to get them up on screen because I asked for them via my YouTube channel and Facebook, and there's quite a lot of questions that have come in, some really brilliant ones as well, so thank you so much. I'm just getting the YouTube ones up here. Okay, I've got 66 questions here as of today, and as I say, I only put it up last night, so we'll see what we're going to do with that. Firstly, those of you that don't know me, that might just be looking at this for the first time, my name is Amanda Ellis, and I work with the energy primarily of the archangel, the angelic realm and the celestial realms. My main guide is Archangel Metatron, who is this bridge between heaven and earth. And one thing that's been happening for me over the last year really, but in particular it's ramped up around now, sort of the 1111 gateway, is that this gift, I guess, of being able to do this type of work seems to have ramped up a notch. So those of you that have been watching me a while will know that I haven't up to this point done a lot of videos like this where I've sort of been channeling people like George or Diana. And certainly my whole channel isn't going to be devoted to this type of work going forward, but from time to time I do know that there's going to be people like them popping in and very much linked in to trying to help us at the moment on our ascension path. And it's not intended as I've said in previous videos, some sort of gossip session. It's really intended to help people who are maybe still in grief at their passing to understand maybe a little bit about why they went as they did, but also what were the qualities that these particular people had that they wished to be remembered by and share even beyond the veil. Okay, so let's turn to George then, and I have here in front of me the dates of his birth and death. And just as I welcome his energy into this room formally, although he's already here, I'm just noting that he was born on the 25th of June 1963 and he died on the 25th of December 2016. So that energy of 25 was with him throughout his whole life. 25 links colour-wise into an energy which is to do with discrimination and analysis. So behind this very sensitive, creative man was also somebody who was deeply intellectual and had a very sharp analytical mind. Although he's telling me that it became less so as he approached the final months of his death. and he will talk about that. And I think he's alluding to drugs in particular, that obviously fuddle the mind, don't they? But in essence, he had this very sharp, analytical mind, intelligent, also had great depths of emotional intelligence as well, which we all can hear through his music. 25 as well, 2 and 5 break down to 7. 7 numerologically is a very spiritual number, which is no surprise, because he feels as though he was a very spiritual man, and music was his medium through which he could show his spirit to the world, and in fact still does, even though he has died. So what have I written down here? His death on the 25th of December does not feel as though it was accidental, in terms of a life that maybe was cut short before it was meant to. If you actually look at the fact that he was born on the 25th, he died on the 25th, there is almost what he's calling this perfect symphony that he came in with, and then he went out with as well. And he's saying, like many symphonies, they have both their high notes and their low notes. They have both celebration and they have tragedy as well. But if you look at a whole symphony over its entirety, you see that it's made up of beauty and challenge. And so he says, so the 25 energy cradled him from birth to death, just as it was meant to. There is also this, of course, beautiful gift that he left every Christmas in terms of his song with Andrew Ridgeley, Last Christmas. And interestingly, the song that I played to you to start this video was Jesus to a Child. And a lot of his music is quite melancholy. And indeed, there is a melancholy around his energy and a lot of emotion. I'm sure we're going to get into that today. And yet, also, he could produce these very bright, bubbly pop songs, which really just lifted everybody's spirits. And it feels as though that song, Last Christmas, is a real gift to the world every year, because it's something that's going to be timeless and that will continue. And he's saying helps to lift the energy, and he's saying helps to particularly lift the energy at times where people can struggle. Christmas is always presented as this very wondrous time, but he knows that it is also a time when a lot of people struggle. A lot of people are shown dysfunctional patterns within their families or their relationships, which they don't know what to do with or how to heal. And so this song that comes in, even though it has melancholy, I guess, in the lyrics, because it's about lost love, the feeling of it is very upbeat, and it's meant to bring a smile to our face at Christmas time. And that his death on that particular day or around that time period seems to just reinforce that even more. This was my parting gift. So, yeah, I will just say something else before I get into the channeling, as it were. I noticed as I was getting ready to do this video, I was trying to decide which song just to play at the start. And I put one on, I can't remember which one it was. It might have been, which one was it actually? It wasn't an upbeat one. It wasn't A Different Corner. It doesn't actually matter, he's saying to me which one it was. It's one of his songs. And then I came back to my screen and the video had stalled, and there was a message that had come up on my screen, and it said, playback paused because your account is being used in another location. Well, I have been on YouTube for years and I'm on my computer every single day. And even if that is a message that you're familiar with and that often comes up on your screens, it has never come up on my screen before. And I thought, that's strange. Instantly I went into a bit of fear mode and I thought, has somebody hacked into my account? Is somebody using my name? And then it was like George was just chuckling and he was saying, no, I'm looking at what you're looking at. Listen back to what the message was. Playback pause because your account is being used in another location. another location being the other side of the veil. So I loved that. It was just like this bridge link. So he made me chuckle a little bit on that. He hasn't got such a infectious sense of humour as Princess Diana when I did hers. He's a much quieter figure, actually. And one thing that I observed about his energy last night, I feel like I'm introducing him, is that I was struck by how softly spoken he is. He's very softly spoken, came across as quite shy and quite gentle as well. And he wants, I know, to talk a little bit about this. A lot of his life was to do with this alter ego that was George Michael, which wasn't something he hid behind. It was something that was very much him. But equally, the other side of him, this very gentle, softly spoken man, very polite as well, is sort of at odds with this rock star that you saw up on stage with the black leather jacket, the shades, doing his stuff. So a lot of his life was about this trying to balance out different duality, basically, within himself. Alter ego and this much softer, quieter person, and then also, of course, the sexuality, which was hidden and then wasn't hidden. This whole sort of dance that was done in his life between two different sides of his personality, sometimes hidden and sometimes revealed. So we'll get into that. Why he came forward quicker than I thought he was going to come forward is because Princess Diana pushed him. I'm hearing that very strongly. I was told that yesterday. And I'm not quite sure which one of them. I think they're both having a bit of a joke, because I'm hearing the word posse. You know, it's like he's saying I was one of her posse. Just a word for club, you know, sort of like some people that used to hang around together. Now, whether they actually physically did hang around together, I know they obviously met each other. There's many photographs of them together, but whether they hung around together or not, I've no idea. But energetically, they did. Energetically, they are of the same soul group, and they are all about helping us to open up our hearts, okay? So he's very much he's calling part of the Diana posse, and he's saying, and I'm very glad to be one, although she is very much in admiration of him as well. So it's very much a relationship of equals. But she gave him this little push because he is coming across as more reserved, and just needing that little push from her to say, it's okay, you know, I did it and it was great, or, you know, I enjoyed it, and people need to hear you again in very much the same way they needed to hear me again. It's safe. It's almost like she gave him a push and said, it's safe to do this, George. So thank you for Diana for helping with that. I also have written down here that last night he was talking a lot about his sisters, and I wasn't sure if he had any sisters actually, so I did look it up, and yes, he does. He has 2 sisters. So when I'm saying he's concerned for his sisters, it's more just in a sort of brotherly way of still looking after them and over them as he would have done through life. So he's very much, it's a protective energy that's coming through with regard to his sisters, but he's also talking about sisters not just of blood. And I'm seeing Shirley particularly in my mind here, the blonde girl who was one of the backing, not girl, she's a woman now, who was one of the backing singers, and I know a lifelong friend of his. And he was referring to her and others like her, but she was the one that particularly came forward into my attention when he was talking about sisters, that he was just looking out for from the other side of the veil. So that was rather lovely, and just this real sense of love for them. Very pure love, very deep love, very, very beautiful actually. Another thing that came up last night, and this was a question that I know has come up on a couple of the channels, was is he of the same soul group of particular musicians? Well, before I even saw those questions, I very clearly was seeing him linked to George Harrison, okay? So there's a bit of a George theme going on here. George Harrison in particular, whether or not they ever link together in life, I don't know, but they're definitely linked the other side of the veil. And if he's sort of jamming with anybody, I would say he's jamming with him. So George Harrison, George Michael, they feel very much of the same soul group. Again, they're the same soul group. Very spiritual spirits. Sounds stupid, but very spiritual men. So putting those two together. I asked about Freddie Mercury because Freddie Mercury is all over the news at the moment because of the film that is out at the moment. And I felt a more distant relationship there, not because there isn't admiration, respect, or maybe even connection between them, the other side of the veil. But what I was feeling was that wherever Freddie Mercury came from, and I'm talking here about galactic systems, we all come from different star systems at the end of the day, feels as though it was different to the lineage, I'm being told, the lineage of George, okay? So Freddie Mercury feels more linked into David Bowie's energy, and maybe we'll look at them a separate time. So I'm not putting Freddie with George, actually, although never say never is what he's saying, because of course the other side of the veil, all of the different realms and lineages and soul groups which are more clearly able to be seen here on earth blur a little bit the other side of the veil. So it's not as though never the twain shall meet, it's just that George Michael and George Harrison in particular feel very sort of welded together for whatever reason. Also, one of the questions last night, and the answer came in straight away, so I'm just going to say I don't need to refer back to him, was along the lines of, do you want to come back? Will you be coming back? Do you remember when I asked the question of Diana? There was definitely a feeling of no, not for the time being. I can do more work the other side of the veil. I feel a different energy with George. I certainly feel he's not coming back this year or next year or probably even within the next 5 years. But I do get a sense, what he's saying to me is that there is a desire to come back. And not because he didn't complete what he was meant to complete in this particular incarnation, because he did. The symphony of the 225s show that. But what he's saying is that the creative aspect of his soul needs more expression in another lifetime. Just coming back and doing it in a different way. I'm actually feeling as though wanting to come back and completely own it in the way that somebody probably like Freddie Mercury did, who was... the feeling with Freddie is that the alter ego and Freddie, there was no distinction. It was just Freddie Mercury. Whereas with George Michael, there is this distinction between George Michael on stage and George Michael, the private man. It's as though he wants to come back and just be. He wouldn't be called George Michael in a next life, but just embody all of it. No hiding, no secrets, no having to play by the rules, just from the offset, going for it in a really big way. And there is this sense with him, which is unusual for Spirit, that he's still quite hard on himself. And what I want to say about that is that, again, unlike Diana, who was coming through as completely healed, to be perfectly honest, George is coming through more as somebody who is still in the healing process. So he's gone through the first stage after we die, which is when we review all of our life events and everything that's happened, and there is an initial intense period of healing. But he's now in a stage where we would describe it as healers here on earth. There are other layers of the onion to uncover. Okay, that's always the analogy with healing. You take off the tough outer layers first and work on those, and then you get to the other layers underneath. So it's a process that he's going through of going deeper and deeper into this particular incarnation and what he learned, reviewing it a bit over and over again, certain parts of it anywhere where he appears to be stuck. And one of them seems to be on this feeling of I get guilt with him as well for some reason, a feeling of guilt, and a feeling of, what do you wanted to say, George? A feeling of guilt. He still has, yes, it's all to do with the physical self, which, you know, I know we're talking to him now as spirit without a body, but the point is that when he looks back on his incarnation, he's still very linked into the physical body that he had and what he did to it. And here I'm talking about how he ended up in the later years, through drugs in particular. And there is a degree of shame still there with regard to that. And there's nobody or nothing in the spiritual realm that is making him feel like that. This is still just part of his healing process, to realise that whatever happened on Earth is because Earth can be a difficult place. And also his incarnation here, although it came with great gifts and blessings, wasn't particularly an easy one either. And so the angels are very much helping him to let go of these feelings of guilt around, I almost wanted to say what he did to himself, okay? And he is still very tied into physical, the way he looked. I mean, even when I was trying to choose a photograph for him last night, just to have here, I found it very difficult, because it was almost like I could hear him in my head. He was like, no, don't like that one. No, don't like that one. Oh no, don't do that one. And it's like, and that's from a spirit looking down at what they did look like in this earth. And as I say, it's a bit of a strange one because we leave our body behind when we return to spirit. But this is why there's still a healing that's taking place with him. And he's saying, I'm getting there with that. So, and he wanted me to have these two different images of him to show. We did finally settle on this. This one, which is in later years, which shows him as being quite, sorry, it's a reflection from my window there, quite studious, I suppose. And that's almost like, in fact, that's almost like the intellectual side. That's the 25 side. And then this is sort of the, you know, the flamboyant, you know, that's the singer that we all remember on stage. Okay, anything else to say from last night? I'm just going to check. Don't think so, no. No, okay, right, I'm going to close my book and I'm going to look now at your questions. I haven't actually planned this at all, so I've answered a couple of the questions already, actually. What's the hardest thing to leave behind? Is he able to be around the ones he loves as much as he can? That's from B. It's the family that's left that is the hardest thing to leave behind. I'm feeling the sisters in particular. There's a very feminine energy with him. And again, interesting dichotomy really, because as a gay man, of course he loved men, but yet there is this real, there's this real love for women as well, but not in a sexual way. Very, very comfortable around women. And I think he had a lot of female friends, but his sisters in particular, he really misses them and he is around them a lot. It's particularly those people that are left on earth that I'm picking up that he particularly misses. Why did he die on Christmas Day? It was poignant since he has a classic Christmas hit which we hear every year. Is there some sort of spiritual significance to it? Yeah, I think I've alluded to that. Also, it links into the portal that is around every Christmas and New Year, where it's always about upgrade. So he's trying to lift us at that time of year, no doubt about that. Right, a few people are asking about music, the other side of the veil. Okay, so let me just ask him about that. I'm using the Rainbow Bridge spray, which I do on all of the videos like this that I'm doing. It just helps us to connect the other side of the veil. So George, let's hear about music, the other side of the veil, please. He's making me laugh because he does have this quite dry sense of humour. He's saying it's almost like, it's like he's saying, I rocked up and there were all these harps, and he said, I didn't want the harps. I'm almost getting a sense that it's like a returning son. It's like he's a returning son to the realm that he's gone back into. And it's almost like, what I'm wanting to say is like he's teaching them. That's what I'm actually feeling. It's like he's teaching them. So it's almost like he was greeted by harps. Not that there's anything wrong with harps, and I'm sure he loves harps, but he's being quite humorous here. And he's saying, yeah, but where are the guitars? I'm just seeing this guitar, and I'm seeing this white guitar, and it's got strings made of almost, well, it's not possible to be made of platinum, but that's what I'm being shown. It's a white guitar and it's got platinum strings. I'm also feeling a link to John Lennon actually as well. Didn't John Lennon he had that white piano, didn't he? John Lennon had the white piano when he was doing Imagine, and I'm seeing George here with this white guitar. And I'm feeling John Lennon now, as well as George Harrison and George Michael. It's like there's three of them up there. I don't know what George Harrison's playing, but George Michael has got this white guitar, and John Lennon has got the white piano that he had when he was here on Earth doing Imagine. And they're having fun. I actually feel as though for George Michael, it's like a reprieve when he gets to play music again in heaven. And he's saying, well, why wouldn't I? Because heaven, at the end of the day, is anything that you want it to be. Heaven, God wants you to be happy, basically. God wants you to be at peace. God wants you to settle. And he's saying, so when you go the other side of the veil, God doesn't put you somewhere which is an alien environment to you. I mean, first you're welcomed in by the light, and he's saying, I made a song about that. He's telling me about the song White Light, where he had the near-death experience, I don't know, 5-7 years before he died. I don't know what date it was, he's not telling me. But he's talking about that the video, and he's talking about that piece of music, White Light. There's something about the colour white that seems to be very healing to him at the moment. Let's actually just spray the white ray around myself just so I can link into what he's saying. So you're greeted by the white light. God makes it comfortable for you. So it's as though it's already been set up, for want of a better word, where you land when you pass over, and when you go across the Rainbow Bridge, and the angels and Metatron and Azrael help you cross over the Rainbow Bridge. And then you're met by an angelic force is what he's talking about. And he's saying there's one in particular, and I saw this angel last night with him, and it's a beautiful golden colour, and it stayed with him. It stayed with him from the moment that he passed over, and it's still with him. And he was joking last night to me. He was saying, well, I had bodyguards in life. At certain times, not all the time. And he's saying this is almost like a celestial bodyguard that I've got. He's having a bit of a laugh with me because obviously you don't need bodyguards in heaven, but it's more that it's this angelic energy that's very attached, and is attached to his left hand side of his body. It's always on the left hand side of George's body. It's bright gold. It's not an archangel. It's not an angel that I'm familiar with. I am wondering whether it's linked into his Greek roots, Greek orthodoxy or something like that. It's very holy, though, is all the way that I would describe this angel's energy. It's very holy. It's very high vibration. It's quite serious in that it's there to help him. Oh, okay. It's there to help him attune to the other side. Never heard that before. But I guess it makes sense. On Earth, at the end of the day, we often have attunements, don't we, to the higher realms. So we're here on Earth and we become attuned to spirit. And so this golden angel that's on the left-hand side of George is feeling as though it helps attune him to the higher plane where he is now. Because for whatever reason, he got really bogged down in Earth, and affected by its frequency, its lower energy, its heaviness. And this angel that's with him is helping him to attune to the higher frequency that he's now at, to adapt to it. And it's also a healing energy, so it's very close to him, almost like a mentor angel, if there are such things. Never seen one before, but it's very, very beautiful. And it's got a beautiful stature to it, so quite regal, yeah. So yes, back to the music. I'm seeing a white guitar, the white piano, John Lennon, George Harrison. What else is going on, George, up there? Music, what can you tell us? Yeah, he's saying music very much like, he knows I'm a colour therapist, so I talk about colours as being of this world and out of this world. There are colours that we cannot see with our physical eye, which we would describe as celestial, okay? Our third eye can sometimes see them, but our two eyes can't. And he's saying it's the same thing with music. He's saying there are notes that exist in the higher realms that you have never heard before here on earth. Some people have, he's saying, if your ear chakras are particularly attuned to be able to hear. But he's saying it's like trying to describe to you what does chocolate taste like, or what does coffee taste like to somebody that hasn't experienced that. And he's saying, and that's why I want to come back. I want to come back and try to recreate some of that on earth. But not yet. But there's definitely a feeling of, there's almost a feeling of urgency with him that he does want to come back quite quickly. But I feel that this golden angel, whatever it is that's with him, is only going to, he's only going to be allowed back when he's fully healed and integrated the lessons of this past incarnation. Because the greatness of what he achieved here on earth in the previous one is going to be surpassed by his next incarnation. So that's quite exciting. So there's almost this sense of urgency with him, this sort of youthful vigour that he's refinding, because he lost that as he declined, he's telling me. He lost the youthfulness, nothing to do with getting into his 50s or anything like that, just that youthful energy, that vigour, that enthusiasm for life. It all disappeared, he's telling me. So I'm just going to ask him now about the last couple of years of his life, in particular the last 6 months. So George, what is it that you're maybe able to share with us about the last 6 months of your life? What are you happy to share that isn't something you want to keep private for whatever reason? Confusion is the first word that I'm hearing. A lot of confusion, mental confusion and physical confusion. He's showing me his body being just as confused as his mind. His body fighting itself in a way. His mind fighting itself. And he's saying the one part of me that always stayed pure, though, was my heart. Okay, now I believe, didn't he have surgery on his heart? So he's talking about his energetic heart space here. He's talking about, I always managed to keep my heart open. He always maintained, even though his body was declining, and I'm hearing the word decaying, actually, which isn't a particularly nice way to put it, but that's what I'm hearing. Those are his words, because he has a very high standard for himself. You know, he's still linking into that, the gorgeousness of the image of him when he was a younger man, Careless Whisper sort of days. And then he's showing me how he looked at the end. And there is this sadness actually within him that he went from that to that. And it's his sadness, because it's not our sadness, because those that loved him didn't think any less of him, actually, at this stage. People were still willing him on to, I don't know, heal, get better, clean up, whatever it was that was going on with him. But it was his end. He couldn't get past what he was and what he became. And I'm talking purely here in terms of the physical body. This has got nothing to do with his music making. He's very, very hard on himself, even so, which is why I don't want to go too far into it, because I don't want to well, actually, I feel like he needs healing from us, actually, from the other side of the veil. And I've heard this before. I've heard people say that when you have an earthbound scar, let's put it that way, an earthbound scar or an earthbound wound that has been created here on earth, of course, when you then go to the other side of the veil, there is all the healing you could possibly need or want. But sometimes, and I've seen this so many times with Metatron, there's just a small percentage that is really hard to heal. And I feel that sometimes the earthbound scars need earthbound energy to help it heal. Does that make sense? Because it happened on the earth, and so it's the earth energy that can actually help to heal it. So I would actually at this point like to send him a wave of love. And I think the way to do that, George, is just to read some of these amazing, beautiful messages that have come in for him. Because to me, that's about him sending, that's about us sending our love to him. So let's use a interesting as well, because I've got the Rainbow Bridge spray, which is the connection between spirit and the other side of the realm, the Rainbow Bridge. But I've got the Magenta Bridge energy, and this to me is more earthly. It's about, this one is about heaven to earth, and this one is earth to heaven. Make sense? Makes sense to me anyway. I'm using the magenta. We're going to send him now some energy. All of those of you watching this who loved him, let's send him a big boost of healing energy from the earth, and let him know that how much he was loved, and just to let go of all of that shame, guilt, heaviness that he's feeling with regard to I was this and I became that, because he needs to hear it. So there's a lovely message here from Leanne Williams Baker. She says, I want you to listen to this, George. Okay, I'm going to put you here so I can see you for a moment. Please give him my love. I'm 43, and my middle school and high school days, I would crank up the beautiful Careless Whisper and either cry all alone for unknown love of my life, lol, or I would do it at parties and make the boys dance to it with me. Also totally separate, it started out a special song because my mother and I would sing it together in the car when she would come and get me as a child. Okay, that's enough of that. In oneness and love, everyone. So many stories like that about how much respect people had for him. George was a beautiful soul who had so much love in his heart. This is a lovely message from somebody called For Oneness, and it says, no questions, lovely, but if you can pass on a message for me. So George, I want you to hear this. I know you're here in the room. I would be forever grateful. George Michael, you are worthy, loved and valued, not because you sing, entertain and bring joy to others, but just because you exist. Thank you for everything that you were, are and will be in the future. Amen. Much love, light and sparkles. Did you hear that? Okay. I'm going to go to another question now. This one's from Ruby James from YouTube. She says, thank you, Amanda, for this opportunity. Hi, George. 11/11/11 for some was about freedom, the releasing of many things. My sister gave me a message that she channeled quoting a line from your hit, Freedom. And the line is, all we have to do now is take these lies and make them true somehow. She sang it in tears. I was extremely moved by it, as if it had a meaning of our ancestors being freed. What did that line mean to you, George? So the line is, all we have to do now is take these lies and make them true somehow. Okay. All we have to do now is take these lies and make them true somehow. And that's from the song Freedom. Okay, let's ask him. Freedom. So much of my path in my life was linked to the journey towards personal freedom in many forms. Personal freedom professionally, in terms of my music, how it sounded, how it was presented, who released it, whether they had ethical standards that matched my own. Professional freedom and personal freedom. Personal freedom to be the person that I longed to be able to show the world, but yet thought would be judged. Freedom to me was a huge bone of contention through my whole life. And now, here, in spirit, I have all the freedom that I could possibly ever want or need. And it is quite mind-blowing. I struggle with that still. Hence my golden angel beside me, helping me to see all that there is to be learnt, witnessed, savoured, enjoyed this side of the veil. I never had a sense of true freedom when I was alive. I had moments of it, but much of my life I felt chained to other people's expectations of what I should be, how I should look, what I should say, what I should release. And so liberation, when it came, was surprising. And I'm still getting my head around it. Guidance for those of you here on earth now. To realise that the soul is always free. And the heart is always free also. Yet we chain both in via the physical body, by other people's expectations, by societal norms, by our own shadow. It doesn't have to be that way. Freedom is one of the songs that I particularly am proud of in my back catalogue that I've left. And it says almost more than any other song that I recorded about my journey through my past life. I just actually want to bring up the lyrics to it. He's asking me to bring the lyrics up. Freedom, George Michael. Yeah, it is. It's all there. If you look at the lyrics to Freedom. Heaven knows I was just a young boy, didn't know what I wanted to be. I was every little hungry schoolgirl's pride and joy, and I guess it was enough for me. To win the race, a prettier face, brand new clothes and a big fat place on your rock and roll TV. But today the way I play the game is not the same, no way. Think I'm going to get myself happy. I think there's something you should know. I think it's time I told you so. There's something deep inside of me. There's someone else I've got to be. Take back your picture in a frame. Take back your singing in the rain. I just hope you understand. Sometimes the clothes do not make the man. All we have to do now is take these lies and make them true somehow. Yeah, it's a very ambiguous line, that one, isn't it? And in a way, it to me, it sums up what he's saying is that whole ambiguity and duality that was his life. There were times when he absolutely felt he was living a lie, and then breaking away from that. Yeah, okay. I don't get too bogged down in that. That's as far as I can go with that question. Let's just pull up another question here. Let's go to Facebook, good old Facebook. Okay. Send him my love, please. I hope once when I die, I will spend a lot of time with him and just listen. His amazing voice and songs. I miss him very much. He is my escape when I'm happy. I'm in love or when I suffer. I will always love him. I love him since my childhood. Careless Whisper is my biggest favourite. I have a very special memory with this song. I cried so many times. And Last Christmas always gives me hope, love. That's Eniko Az. Yeah, absolutely. Just trying to find a question here. A lot of people you see are just wanting to give their love, which is nice. Sorry guys, I don't want to pause the camera. Okay, there's one here from Mary. His advice to teens going into adulthood. That's a good question. Be yourself, my God, be yourself. Be true to yourself, be yourself. Don't be moulded. Don't try to always fit in with the crowd. Young Guns, go for it. Remember that song? Again, it's almost as though some of these questions, the answers are already there in his lyrics. He's already written the answers to a lot of the stuff that we're actually asking him about. He's almost wanting us to go back to his back catalogue and look at the words in the songs, because the answers to that, his advice to teens going into adulthood, he's saying listen to Young Guns. I remember that. Young Guns, go for it. Okay, all right, I'm going to do it. He wants me to pull up those lyrics now. Young Guns. That was Wham. That was when he was with Wham, wasn't it? Okay, George. He's very into the lyrics. It's like he put a lot of time into the lyrics. It's like he's saying, go back and look at the lyrics. Hey sucker, what's the hell got into you? Well, I hadn't seen your face around town a while, so I greeted you with a knowing smile. When I saw that girl upon your arm, I knew she'd won your heart with a fatal charm. What young guns having some fun, crazy ladies keep 'em on the run. Wise guys realise there's danger in emotional ties. See me, single and free. No tears, no fears, what I want to be. 1, 2, take a look at you. Death by matrimony. Yeah, that's also like a nod to just have some fun, you know? Life is so short. Life is short. He knows that better than anybody. And it's like, don't forget to have some fun, you know? Celebrate your youth. Enjoy your youth. Don't be irresponsible, but enjoy it. The whole rhythm of that song is just brilliant. Okay, it's just brilliant. Let's play a little bit of it. We've got time. Why not? I remember this. I remember this coming on. Yeah. Let's have a bit of this. Change the tempo. Sorry, that was me.
Around town, why somebody greeted you with an annoying smile. When I saw that girl upon your arm, I knew she won your heart with a fatal charm. I said, soul boy, let's hit the town. I said, a boogie boy, what's with the frown? But in return, all you could say was, hi, Dodge, we can
Fiance, fantastic. Love it. He was so great at that, wasn't he? You know, able to tap into different musical genres and able to change the mood just like that. It's very much something with his energy. It can go down quite quickly, but then it can equally go up really quickly. And I suspect he was like that in life, bit of a roller coaster. Somebody's asking about his friend Andrew Ridgeley here. And anything he has to say about Andrew. Okay, so let's just see anything you have to say about Andrew. He says, well, we were always complete opposites. And that's sort of what made it work. He was a loyal friend to me. He has great respect for Andrew. I'm hearing the word dignity. I'm hearing a dignified man, a man of principles. Weirdly, I mean, because, you know, my memory and maybe some of your memories is obviously of them as young men, you know, and I'm not being rude, but like prancing around the stage a bit, you know, wake me up before you go and all of that. But it's like, again, ambiguity, because he's showing me Andrew's very studious side and intellectual side. And it's as though there was a meeting of minds with those two, and there was a meeting of minds with them. He's not giving too much away about Andrew. It's interestingly that it's like the shutters come down with him quite easily when there's things that he doesn't want to talk about. And I think it's because that's the way he was in life. I think he was a very private man, and you never saw, I don't think you ever saw an interview with him where he would have talked about Andrew in any great depth necessarily, about his innermost feelings. And he's still like that in death, actually. When people die, they don't change drastically. They still have the same mannerisms that they had in life. And there is this wall of privacy that has to be respected with him. And I do respect it. And it's as though, other than the fact that he's telling me there was a meeting of minds, he likes the quiet dignity of Andrew. Obviously there was this solid bond there. He's not going too much deeper than that. They feel like brothers, and those of you that have brothers will know that he's given the analogy of a big family, whereby you can have a brother but yet be quite different from them, okay? And equally in the same family you could have another brother and you could be almost like joined at the hip. They definitely weren't joined at the hip at any stage, but there was this brotherly respect and loyalty that ran through all of it. And he's saying that Andrew's quite an independent man, so I'm not feeling, you know, he would definitely be looking out for him the other side of the veil, but I'm still feeling the attention is more on the girls, as he's calling them, you know, the sisters, and female friends. There's almost like this protective big bear type quality with him of, because he did hold a very masculine energy of wanting to go in and almost like be protector for them in that way. It's almost like a fatherly type energy actually. Whereas with Andrew, there is just this knowingness with George that he's independent, and it's not that he can look after himself, but just that he knows he's okay. But he would always be there for him if he ever really needed it. That's the sort of energy that I'm picking up there. Let's see, what else do you want to say, George? He is wanting to talk about appearance, you know, because I'm looking at this picture of him with, you see here, he's got a nice sort of tie and shirt and suit on. And he's saying it's important how you treat your body and how you adorn your body. And he's saying you should really respect your body. There's almost like this, I mean, I know he was Greek, but it feels quite like an Italian influence, you know? It's sort of like, you know, wanting to dress nicely, not from any perspective that is showy or materialistic, more in terms of he's starting to really appreciate now that this body that we have in life and the one that he will get when he comes back is the temple for your soul. And so therefore you don't just fling rubbish at your soul, you know, and the thing that houses it, your body. You respect your body. He is encouraging us to dress well as a sign of our own inner respect for ourselves. Funny enough, I stuck this dress on today. You can't really see it, but I had an old pair of jeans and a sweater on, and I felt like I needed to put a dress on, and I understand why now. And it was like, well, you know, it's not really going to make any difference to George whether I'm sat here in a dress or a pair of jeans, but it sort of does, because, oh, he's saying it's about standards. He's very much about standards. Okay, he's about standards, not in a judgmental way. It's just have standards for yourself. He's saying, okay, he's talking to me now. He's saying, wear the best dress if you want to wear the best dress. You know, don't save things for Sunday. Don't save things for a special day. Again, there is this urgency with him that life is short. Enjoy it. Wear your Sunday best. You know, make an effort, because he's saying every single day counts. All right. I'm going to ask him about sexuality now. Let's see what we get with regard to sexuality. He's saying that the way that he behaved when he came out as gay, and there were a number of stories with him in the paper where he was caught on Hampstead Heath, and many liaisons with different men, and he was saying a lot of them were very soulless, and he was saying that was nothing to do with, he doesn't want that tag applied to being gay. That's the reason why he was behaving like that. He was saying that equally he could have been like that as heterosexual as well. And he's saying indeed people do behave like that who are heterosexual. He's saying the mindless sex, you know, sex with people that you don't really, you know, have any connection with at heart level, is a cry for help, was a cry for help, in the same way that the drugs were a cry for help. I don't know whether he drank. I'm picking up drink as well, but it's almost like it was all part of this feeling within him of emptiness and needing to escape from himself. And it's as though he's not wanting the actions that happened around his sexuality, particularly linking in, as I say, to the picking up of a lot of men that was reported, to be linked to his sexuality. Are you understanding what he's trying to say here? Because it's important to him, because he's saying it's almost like there's it's linked to being gay. In the media, that's what the media did. It was sort of like I came out as gay, and then I started to have this string of meaningless relationships. Well, they weren't even relationships, encounters, he's saying. But he said that had nothing to do with being gay. I could have been behaving like that if I was heterosexual. It was the same wound within me that also saw me take drugs or drink or just slowly start to decay, which is what happened in the end. And he's wanting us to he's really wanting us not to identify. It's not because he's ashamed of it, it's just that he's saying that wasn't the real truth of my experience as a gay man. And he's showing me a couple of relationships that he had in life, long-standing relationships with men, which he's proud of. He's talking about the partner he had who died of AIDS. He was a Brazilian man, don't know his name. I'm seeing that relationship. I'm also seeing the relationship with another man. Was it Kenny? Kay, something like that. It was a long-standing one anyway, and I think they broke up before he died. I know he was with another man, wasn't he, when he was in the final years of his life. But he's saying that those three relationships in a lot of ways had longevity to them, had depth to them, had love to them, and he's also like he's proud of those relationships, and he's saying, you know, being gay, you can have just as deep a connection with somebody, just as long a relationship with somebody. You can have commitment and all of the values of honour and integrity that you would get in any other form of sexual orientation relationship. And he's almost irritated, is what I'm feeling. He's irritated by the tag that's sometimes put to him or put on him with regard to, oh yes, he found his sexuality and then he sort of went off and was having these string of encounters with men. And he's saying that was nothing to do with being gay. That was just another example of the wound within me. You know, they didn't go off and say, oh, he's drinking or he's taking drugs. It was more about, it was linked into my sexuality. So he's wanting us to honour the commitments that he made in his life to three men in particular, and saying that he learned something from each of those relationships. And I'm wanting to thank each of them actually in different ways for what they gave to him and the support that they gave. Okay. Let's see, where are we going now? There's a question here. Does he think negative perceptions of the LGBTQ community will improve in our culture? Okay, so what guidance can he give to anybody within that community? What guidance would you give, George? To be proud of who you are. To not hide. To be 100% out and proud. But not in your face in a way that makes you different. Just out and proud as though it was the norm, because it is the norm. It's just as much a part of normal as anything else, is what he's saying. He's saying it took me years to realise that. But he is an enigma, because the more that I look at him and I feel his energy here, he doesn't really want to be identified by any one tag. He's really interesting. He doesn't want to be identified by just any... He hates being boxed in. So, you know, to be called a gay icon wouldn't be his thing necessarily, because you'd be identifying him with just one part of his personality. And he's saying that was the whole problem in his life, he got tagged the whole time as the poster boy, as the gay icon, as this, as that. And he's saying he just wants to be seen as George Michael. In fact, he doesn't even want to be seen as George Michael, he just wants to be seen as George. Let go of all of the tags. Just be proud of who you are, but nobody needs to make a song and dance about it. Ha ha, he's saying. He'd have made a great father. Wasn't to be in this lifetime, he says, but he would have, there's a little bit of regret with him. A little bit of regret. He would have made a great father. Regret is maybe putting it a little bit too hard, but there is this feeling that he would have liked to have experienced that in this lifetime. But he's saying, it's catching up. The era that we're in now is catching up, i.e. that you can have two men bringing up a child and people don't have an issue with that. You know, children are brought up in gay relationships. People don't have an issue with it. Or some people would, but some people have an issue with everything. So, you know, who cares about that? But he's saying when he was of the age when maybe it would have been a good age to maybe have had children, he's saying times it wasn't as easy. So it's like he feels he missed the boat on that. And in another life, and he's raising an eyebrow, drawn to his eyebrows, and by that he means probably the next one, he'd like to experience that. Although he's not shown me sexual orientation in the next life because he hasn't decided. But he would like to have experienced it in this life, I think. I feel this love for children coming through very strongly with him. Liked being around children, was a good uncle, I'm hearing. Uncle in the wide sense of the word. Guardian, he's saying. He was a guardian. He liked being a guardian for other people's children. He would have been a great father. You would have been a great father. Any guidance for the kids growing up in this world? I keep hearing this persistent message from him, just be true to yourself. And it seems such a simple message, but none of us get it, he's saying. We all try to conform. We all try to fit in. We all try to stay with the pack. Be true to yourself. It's like if he could shake us all up now, that's what he'd be doing. He'd like be trying to shake us all up, shake us awake. Be true to who you are. Who are you? I didn't know who I was through much of my life, he says. I'm learning now. Be true to who you are. Okay, George, anything else before we close? Your death. I'm feeling that he's showing me that the air in the house where he was found had become very stale over the days or weeks before he died. Literally as though windows hadn't been opened. Maybe he'd been reclusive, I don't know. Hadn't been out much. A feeling of claustrophobia, a feeling of the walls closing in on him. Not a particularly nice energy. Feeling the walls closing in on me. The walls closing in on myself. Inevitable conclusion to that. He is saying, I believe his death was ruled as natural causes, but he's talking about slow suicide. And by that, what he means is not on that particular night. He's talking about how you can be in a slow suicide through weeks, months and years of your life. I'm being shown this graph. He showed me a graph, and it's just like this steady decline. And he's saying that it becomes like a slow suicide. That's what you're basically doing to yourself, until something or somebody steps in to stop it. But he's saying no judgment that didn't happen, because the only person that can do that is yourself. And he was saying that even if his death hadn't happened in the manner that it did, there still would have been something that would have closed it off around that period of time. Remember what he said about the perfection of the sympathy, 25 to 25, 53 years in between that. So he doesn't want us to get too hung up about the whys and the wherefores and the hows. But he is wanting to help the other side of the veil, those people who are on that downward path, who are caught up in addiction or denial or hiding who they really are. And he really wants to help. I feel he's being held back a little bit from helping energetically, because he is still healing. So it's almost like this golden angel is back now, and they're almost saying like, hold on, George, you've got to heal yourself first, okay? But and also it's almost like the angel is reminding him that he's already left a lot of healing energy here on the earth for anybody that chooses to pick it up and play with it, i.e. listen to the music, read the lyrics, okay? Go back into the energy of what was left here. What else? Any guidance for us here at the moment, George? Any guidance for us? Sorry, my doorbell went. That happened with Princess Di. It's just the way that I roll, though, I'm afraid. I do this from home, so I'm not in some fancy studio. I need to go as well. It's actually 11 minutes past 11. I've got to go and help my mother with something, which George says is fine, because he loved his mum. He's saying, you go and help your mum, Amanda. Okay, I will. Thank you, George. He loves his mother. She's on the other side as well. He's with her. He's with her. Yeah, very much so. What do I want to say? One just quick question. Just I'm having my cup of coffee and then I'm going to bolt out of the door. Somebody asked about what musicians does he think are good? Well, I can't answer that exhaustively, but I did hear I'm sure he's playing a bit of a game with me here, because he keeps talking about Georges. So we had George Harrison earlier, who's obviously passed over. He's talking about George Ezra, I think he's called George Ezra. Yeah, George Ezra. I don't know much about George Ezra, although I've heard a couple of his songs. He is saying he's a good lyricist. Okay, George Michael is quite he's very into lyrics. Okay, he poured his heart into his lyrics. It's all there in his songs. So there's something about George Ezra in terms of the lyrics that guy brings through are good, he's saying. So I'm just gonna give you that one just to end with. Okay, let's just see if there's any other really easy question that I could ask him at the end. Excuse me. Let's have a look. Let's see what the latest question is that came through. Let's just see what that is. Yeah, there's one more that's just come through. What is comment number 67 then, George? Let's have a look. Oops, hold on. It is from Angela Locke. Please, can you ask if he will reincarnate? Well, we've already done that. Yes, he's going to. Why did Fardy sleep in the car? Love your channel. Do you know, I'm almost hearing George say, mind your own business. No offence, Angela, that's not intended to you. It's just the way he is. He's just really private. I think they had a row, basically. They had a row. Yeah, he's saying we had a row. Funny really that, well, not funny at all, but funny that I'm ending it talking about having a row, because my day started with a row. And, you know, not a terribly serious one, just one with my teenage daughter. But I wasn't completely in 5D, let's put it that way. I lost it a bit with her, bless her heart. And so apologies to that. Apologies, Lucy. But anyway, the point is I'm human. And then I sat down in this room to do this reading with George. And I thought, obviously, I cleansed myself and, you know, made sure my chakras were all aligned and, you know, let go of the argument, didn't bring it into this session. But I sat down, having had the argument, and I saw George's sweet face, you know, next to me. And I said to him, I said, oh gosh, I don't know whether I can do this now. Just had this situation with Lucy. And he was like, he just like rolled his eyes and laughed. And he said, well, yeah, but that's life, isn't it? That's life. Life is made up of these highs, these lows, these challenges. So in a way, yeah, he had an argument with his lover on that night. But it's like, no big deal. It happens. It happens in relationships. So it's almost like nothing more needs to be said on that. Okay. New World Rising. Did I read one of your messages out earlier? I can't remember. But anyway, it says, I would like to know if he lives somewhere on the other side and if he likes it there. Does he have a job, like a guardian angel, creative muse? He's a creative muse, absolutely. He's teaching them. That's what I said at the start. If there is a white light, and whether he went vertically to higher dimensions or horizontally to be earthbound. That's a good question. White light, because he talked about white light and going into the white light. Let's just ask him. Moment of transition then, George. Okay, he's saying to me, and I've heard others say this, that he left his body okay, I'll give it. He left his body before the moment of death, completely. I don't even know if that's possible. That's just what he's telling me. It's like he was or maybe not completely, it's almost like 75-80% of him was already out of his body, and he was just watching. He was just watching the last act, as it were, completely detached from it all. I don't feel that there was any pain there or huge trauma, because his soul had 80% already detached from it. And did he cross the rainbow path quickly? Yes, he did. With a lot of other people, he's saying. Because the day that he passed, 25th of December, there's a lot of births and there are a lot of deaths. It's a highway between earth and heaven. And he's saying lots of people choose to enter and exit on those days. And so he says, I wasn't alone when I passed. And he's actually showing me, this makes me feel a little bit emotional. This might be for a couple of people that are watching this video. He's showing me some babies and children that died around that period. Oh my God, I feel like he carried a child over the bridge with him. He wasn't alone. He was like a shepherd. He helped other people at that, whoever passed around that time, on that day. George was very much somebody there who was shepherding, and did so because ultimately he'd already left his body. I feel he'd left his body a good number of hours before the actual moment he passed. So there'd been a period of healing that was already starting on him before the moment of death. The period of healing that usually happens after the person has died started to happen to him before the clock struck 12, as it were, you know, and he was completely gone. And therefore he was in a fit enough state to be able to help others over. Very beautiful. Pied Piper, I'm hearing. It's like a Pied Piper. He was a Pied Piper in life. Many people gathered to his tribe and loved his music. He's a Pied Piper the other side of the veil, and he was a Pied Piper on that date, 25th of December 2016. And he is very loved by many in spirit, and he is okay. He wants you to know he's okay, but he is going to be back at some point, very much so.